Today we focus on a critique on a book written by Carl Smith, and the book was called The Plan of Chicago, Daniel Burnham and the Remaking of the American City. Let's start with some background information about Chicago provided from the book. Chicago was originally a small town which consisted of 100 residents in 1830, and in 1837 Chicago incorporated as a city. The city has been facing population growth. It also introduces the Plan of Chicago, which was known as the Burnham Plan, created by Daniel Burnham. Smith mentioned that Burnham was an American architect and an urban planner. The Plan of Chicago was triggered by the local businessmen, merchants, bankers, manufacturers, real estate, and other business agents who sought to reshape the sprawling city of Chicago. Chicago was still an underdeveloped place. The cityscape was unappealing with heavy air pollution, while the faulty sanitation was causing unhealthy hazards. The traffic circulation for freight and passengers was slow and inconvenient. Furthermore, the railroad tracks had isolated the commercial center from the lakefront and streets were not paved, leading to passengers to walk on mud and dirt. During the urban sprawl in Chicago in the 1800 to 1900, an unfortunate event had occurred in the 1871, which was known as the Great Fire. It had taken close to 300 lives of the residents, incinerated close to a third of the city, leading up to 98,000 people who were left homeless. As 17,500 buildings were destroyed and over 200 million of property were lost. Consequently, 60,000 people had left the city, but over a half of them had returned within a few weeks after the Great Fire. After the Great Fire, a movement of industrialization has occurred. Reason was due to the value of quarter acre was valued at $1,300,000 in 1880 in Chicago CBD had increased to $900,000 in 1890, which had led to Burnham to start envisioning high-rise buildings, which are now known as the skyscrapers. The building can only go up due to cost of horizontal expansion cost is too high. The high-rise buildings adapted new architectural design and engineering construction technique by changing the material from masonry walls to skeletal structure and skeletal construction, with metal framing as the building were held up by external masonry walls. But now it is supported by interior skeletal structure. In conclusion of the background summary we have given to you, Smith focuses on how Chicago grew from a small town to a city, and implementing Daniel Burnham's planning theory, as the local businesses sought to reshape the city to a better place, but due to an unfortunate event known as the Great Fire, it brought attention to many architects to help to rebuild the city and thereafter led to new innovation together with the Chicago Plan. It is now time for critique. Smith introduced Daniel Burnham as an American architect and an urban planner. He took the leading role in the creation of many cities in the United States of America, such as Cleveland in 1903, San Francisco in 1905, and finally the Plan of Chicago in 1910, which was also famously known as the Burnham's Plan. The author had used the previous experience of Burnham to support his statement to conclude that Burnham would be the most fitted urban planner. But debatably, would that make Burnham the most suitable planner for Chicago? However, Burnham had no formal university degree, although he did apprentice himself as a drafter under William LeBaron Jenney, whom also was a prominent architect at the time. Smith focused on the rebuild of the city that were helped by many of the people who were originally from Chicago, and the city was quickly rebuilt as a result. He also mentioned that it had led many prominent architects to the city and started their own firms, as they saw the opportunity of demand for architecture. The architects that were prominent at the time were William LeBaron Jenney, Louis Sullivan, John Wawon Root, Daniel Burnham, and Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. The logical development of the book here can be questionable, assuming that what if the Great Fire did not occur? There would be no such a high demand for so many construction works, which required so many architects to come to the city. Subsequently, the Great Fire is a catalyst for the movement of industrialization for Chicago. Smith mentioned that as the town was mainly built from timber, which is why the fire was able to incinerate a third of the city, led to Burnham to build new buildings with glass and steel as a precaution to prevent fire again. Simultaneously, as the city is getting rebuilt, the economic growth was surprisingly growing stronger as well, and the value of the land became much higher. Although the author provided facts in the article, but it can be broadened the point of view of the author to explore the what ifs. It is arguable that the Great Fire is a catalyst, but if the Great Fire did not occur, what would Chicago look like? Here's a fly-through model. Without the fire, there might not even be a need for the building to be made with glass and steel. This innovation would not have been created. There will be no high-rise buildings. Chicago may not be known as the birthplace of skyscrapers. And finally, would there even be such thing as skyscrapers? An example of the critique, if the Great Fire did not happen, is the home insurance building. It was erected in 1885, created by William LeBaron Jenney, and known as the first high-rise building. It was a trigger to other architects to create high-rise buildings, as the lower part of the body was imbued with steel and skeletal structure, which was an innovation and a newfound technique that had been implemented for the first time. The innovation was found when Jenney was attempting to comply with the fire standard. The home insurance building would have looked like this if the Great Fire did not happen. The critic session has ended. It is intriguing to think what might have happened if the Great Fire did not happen. Would we be living in a world of cityscapes where it is flat with no hierarchy? Or will we have skyscrapers, but it is just a matter of time only?